Buenas, bienvenidos a este vídeo de unplandivino.net, por así decir. Y vamos a seguir con el taller de la ley de vinculación y comunicación con espíritus. Y estamos con Clau y Ana Pilar desde Argentina. ¿Qué tal, Clau, con el calor del Chaco?
Sí, acá estamos, gracias, saludos.
¿Estáis?
La verdad es que sí, un poco tristón también, pero bien sintiendo la tristeza.
Los incendios y todo esto tremendo.
Sí, la verdad es que es triste el panorama, duele, pero aunque no parezca, el cerebro, las sensibilidades de ese lugar, sí.
Sí, me mandaste las fotos de un fuego y da esa rabia que hay que sentir, la verdad, para poder sentir la pena que en realidad está nuestra, es como si decías antes, es como que nuestra rabia, nuestra ira está ahí visible en los incendios. Sí, da mucha pena sí.
Sí, claramente es una guerra contra la vida y no queda, digamos, no queda duda que esa es nuestra posición.
Bueno, y Ana P, como en Patagonia, más refrescante, ¿qué tal?
Hola, buenos días. Más refrescada, pero no tanto. Hoy también 30 grados acá y
Ahí está.
sin viento.
Sí, aquí ha vuelto, ha hecho unos días más primaverales, por así decir, y ha vuelto un poco hoy el frío, pero aquí viene y va, hasta que no entra ya más la primavera. El invierno sigue dando oleadas así en España, en el centro. Pero luego España tiene climas que están todo el rato en primavera prácticamente, o sea que hay más en Levante. Bueno, no tanto, pero... Bueno, tonterías. Entonces, estamos en 19 de febrero, si no me equivoco, del 2022 y ya hemos dado el parte meteorológico, así que vamos a ver cómo continúa, que estaba por el tema de los espíritus dando ejemplos y va a acabar con otra pregunta sobre ello. Ya pasamos a la parte 2. Después de haber hablado de lo de Anastasia, que lo comentamos un poco, pues bueno, luego vamos a ver un largo rato y luego comentamos lo que surja. Así que apuntamos lo que podáis y si eso, bueno, y si hace alguna pregunta personal que queráis responder, como hicimos el otro día, que hay un momento dado que le pregunta al público, oye, ¿cuántos de aquí habéis no sé qué? En ese caso, como si hiciéramos el juego de que estamos en un taller, ahí sí que a lo mejor interrumpimos, pero vamos a intentar no interrumpir. Sí, para más que a lo mejor en esos casos, ¿no? Eso puede ser divertido.
Dale.
Si pregunta algo en plan, como si nosotros estuviéramos ahí presenciando. Vale, pues si se oye bien, ya no interrumpimos y ya seguimos.
Ok.
Just about to finish, actually, so this is probably the last question.
How many human beings can share the same spirit at the same time? For example, St. Francis is going to James, and I felt touched by St. Francis at a time in my life.
Yep.
Is it possible that many people can be guided by that same spirit at once?
The celestial spirit is capable of thousands of simultaneous transactions. Even actually, the higher they rise in the celestial spheres, hundreds of thousands, and when you get to the soul union condition, millions and millions of simultaneous transactions, emotional transactions with people. So bearing that in mind, you are able to actually, as a celestial spirit, remain in the celestial spirit world, enjoying your life, and still guide a person on earth. If you can think of it like this, you know, a big computer, like a supercomputer, processes information at billions and billions and billions of pieces of information in a second. So if you can think of yourself as processing one piece of information a second, and a celestial spirit processing a millions of pieces of information in a second, can you see how the time they spend with you doesn't have to be very long for you to feel like it's a permanent connection? And that's how it is further for those spirits.
So we could also therefore feel that we've been visited by spirits such as St. Francis, and then we will move on. Doesn't necessarily need to stay around us.
He doesn't necessarily need to stay around him.
Aquí es lo que confirma.
He will choose certain people to guide, and once he chooses somebody to guide, he will often spend a lot of time around those people. But when you have a longing for him or a rapport with him, he will often feel very drawn into that interaction, just like you would like. So you might have a really close friendship, like I might have a really close friendship with Brian. But you come into my life and I really like you, so we actually have an interaction for a period, but then you decide you're interested in some other things. So then the rapport between us will obviously stop. We haven't, it hasn't stopped because we got angry with each other or upset with each other or any of those things. It's just stopped because there's different desires now leading us in different directions. And that happens all the time in the spirit world. Now what I'm going to stop now is we stop for 30 or 40 minutes.
Aquí anuncia pues eso, que van a detener van a descansar un rato y ahora seguimos en la parte 2.
And I'm going to continue this discussion with the questions because obviously I haven't covered much of the material. And
o sea, dice que eso, que no le ha dado tiempo, como siempre, a cubrir mucho del material, a tratarlo.
And so we're going to continue the discussion, answering those questions as well, and answering the spirit questions that have been directed as well. So that's good. How have you found the discussion so far?
Quieren responder también a las preguntas de los espíritus, como decían al principio. Aquí también una parte donde no está transcrito que dice, ¿cómo va hasta ahora? Dice. Ahora ya estamos en la segunda parte.
What's going on? Good. All right. Well, now what I'd like to do is actually focus on the limitations of the mediums and healers, if you like, in terms of receiving messages. What we've done a lot is I know a lot of the spirits who are here have been talking a fair bit about the discussion that we've had up to now. And so what we want to do now is focus a bit more on the mediums and helping you. The important part of this session really is that what we're covering now is just really a summary or an overview of what we'll be covering in detail in these monthly sessions that we'll do with you, if those of you who are mediums want to come along for these sessions. So the first thing that later in these sessions we'll be asking how many people feel that they'd want to come along on a regular basis, because obviously how many coming is going to determine the location.
Aquí habla de algo de logística, también quiere saber cuántos van a venir para preparar el evento, o sea, la cantidad, el espacio.
Location where we can actually meet together. And so we'll determine all those things in a bit. But
eso lo van a tratar ahora.
What I'd like to do for the next hour or so at least is...
Eso lo tratarán al final en una parte que haremos seguramente en el cuarto de los vídeos, después de este, que no está transcrito y lo iremos viendo, que sale James, el que es guiado por San Francisco, ahí a hablar un momento y es interesante. Vamos a
talk more about the limitations that we have as mediums and as healers, and look at the emotional condition that we have. So this is on the second page of your handout that I've given you. And I'd like to focus a lot on this section. Now, from our discussion yesterday and our discussion today, there's something that's been coming out over and over and over again. And what's that? Soul condition. Does that make sense? So remember soul condition. Remember soul condition determines your law of attraction. And soul condition also determines your spirit attractions. So therefore, if you're a medium, soul condition is going to very much determine the effectiveness of your mediumship. And if you're a healer, soul condition is going to very much determine that. Does that make sense? So what we want to do now is focus on the soul condition, firstly, of mediums. Now, one of the major problems that most mediums have, and most mediums and psychics that you visit will have this problem, and that is the problem with humility. Just going to back this off a little. So the problem, and perhaps if you could just switch that off, because that's cool. And it's a problem with humility. Now, what are the problems with humility? Well, most people who are psychics or mediums and who have developed their skills and are perhaps using their skills on a cash basis, or in using their skills maybe in a spiritualist church or something like that, the majority of them feel that they have the gift because of some special, unique quality within themselves that has to do with their soul condition. And they are right. It does have something to do with the soul condition. But they then make the second assumption, and that is the assumption that I must be in really, really good soul condition if I can do something that a lot of other people cannot. And that's when mediums come to grief. So all of you who are wanting to develop your mediumship, it's very, very important for you to develop this quality of humility. Now, can you remember the definition I've given you of?
Yo creo que cuando quiere decir come to grief, que llegan a cosas de las que se tendrán que lamentar, quizá es el sentido amplio de... Lo dice muy rápido, llegan a la pena, a la aflicción, pero bueno, eso lo podemos comentar, a ver cómo lo intuimos. Si llegan a eso, a tener cosas por las que lamentarse, ¿no? Quizás es eso. Bueno.
Humility. What was it? Can you remember? Okay, yes, a strong desire to feel your emotions, right? A strong desire to feel and experience them. Now, for most mediums have been developed along the New Age type of beliefs. Or, if we talk about mediums in a complete sense, there are many mediums who are called prophets in a born-again Christian sense, right? And they are still mediums. They're the same kind of person. They're channeling information from spirits through themselves to another. And the biggest problem that they face is this problem of humility. Humility will govern the type of spirits you attract. Humility will also govern the type of information you can receive. The more humble you are, the wider the variety of information you'll be able to receive. The more haughty you are, or the more controlling you are, or the more resistant to emotions you are, the less information you'll be able to receive. And most mediums get into this state where they believe they have this special, unique gift, and they become so proud of that unique gift that they then start thinking that the information they're receiving is actually their own. Do you know what I mean by that? They actually start believing that all this wonderful information that's passing through them is because of them. That they just know all these things about everybody. And they start feeling that they just know because it's coming from inside of themselves. And as soon as you start getting into that state as a medium, you are going to be attracting spirits who are in very low and poor conditions. The reason why is really what is happening. Remember with spirit communication, this is really what is happening. Here's me on the earth, my soul, my spirit material bodies, right? Here's the spirit. This spirit is actually communicating, and it depends on what condition the spirit's in and what condition I am in as to how it's communicating.
Así que tenemos el cuerpo material y el espiritual, la mitad del alma de una persona física y arriba pues el espíritu con el cuerpo espiritual y el alma.
But for most people, this spirit is communicating through the spirit to material body connection, which is It's called the silver cord, communicating into this.
Aquí dibuja algo que volverá a dibujar después, o sea que se aclarará. Aquí lo está haciendo como más a la ligera. Está diciéndose que sí, a través de la conexión que hay, este cordón de plata que lo coloca aquí en medio, que es curiosa la representación, como una bobina. Y eso, hace este recorrido como pasando al cuerpo espiritual. Y claro, ese cuerpo espiritual, nosotros tenemos que prestarle la conexión que hay, que el cordón de plata que tenemos entre nuestro cuerpo físico y el espiritual nuestro, tenemos que prestar, no sabemos cómo, ¿no? Es un gesto natural en parte, por la interacción esta que como vemos será tan natural, sobre todo en mediums tan buenos como María, Magdalena, ¿no? Pues sabemos que es tan fácil, ¿no? Y eso está, simplemente es esto, que no nos líe aquí en el PDF, que lo aprovecho y lo pongo ya, que he parado por un momento, porque aquí es importante que no nos liemos, que no es nada complicado. Entonces, vamos a poner los croquis también aquí en el... Un momento. A ver si puedo... Vale, aquí aún en esta parte del PDF no ponen en el PDF original, aún no ponen el dibujito que luego sí hará que del cordón de plata y en medio, tan curioso, tan raro. Estamos por aquí y aquí pues he puesto mucha explicación, pero que no es nada lioso ni nada, pero es para avisar sobre todo de que luego lo va a tratar más, que nadie se equivoque ahí, que no es eso. Bueno, entonces...
Physical form, right?
Ahí es cuando he dicho esta forma física, que es la de la derecha. Se está comunicando con esta forma física.
So what's actually happening is all of the information that's coming out of your mouth, the majority of it, if not all of it, is actually not yours. It's actually the spirit who's with you. And in fact, if you're a good medium, none of the information coming out of your mouth while you're doing your mediumship will be actually yours. And when I say a good medium, a medium who's cleared their emotional condition to the point of one with God is a good medium. Right? And when you're at that state, nothing coming out of your mouth will be yours. Nothing will be influenced by anything inside of you when you're doing a mediumship. Now that is a very powerful state to be in terms of transmitting information from the spirit world to the earth. Until that point, we're going to be in various degrees of interruption to the pureness of the message, if that makes sense, depending on the condition of the spirit. So if the spirit is in the celestial spheres and I'm in the second sphere, then obviously I'm going to be modifying the information quite a lot, aren't I? But if the spirit's in the second sphere and I'm in the second sphere, then obviously there's going to be a lot more purity of information because our two conditions match a lot more. Does that make sense? But as soon as I, as a medium, start believing that it's all me is the reason why this is all occurring, now I'm setting up this constraint upon the spirit world that any spirit who's doing it for loving purposes is probably not going to be drawn as much to me. Can you see why? Because we're not respecting where the information's coming from. How would you like to talk to, like if I talk to Brian and then Brian talked to Raya, and Brian then claimed that the information I gave him was his own. Right? Now, if I would after a while start questioning, am I going to keep talking to Brian? Or am I just going to wait till Ray's ready and I'll just talk to her? Would not. And bypass Brian altogether, because his condition is that he's modifying my information.
O sea, Brian está modificando su información como Jesús hace, como si fuera el espíritu que canaliza, que quiere hablar con Raya a través de Brian. Pero claro, Brian está haciéndose propia esa información, entonces no le gusta, claro, o sea, no le sirve. Está modificando de alguna manera y la está reclamando.
Right? And he then is claiming it as his own. That doesn't sound very good. And then let's add another factor into it. He's also charging her for it. And I'm giving it to him for free. Right? Can you see what's going on now? Like lots of different things start getting factored in.
There's a presumption of ownership of the information when in reality the information comes from God.
Yeah.
So the presumption of ownership over the information gets in the way.
Yeah. That's right. And that's why none of the DVDs that you're getting, none of the CDs you're getting, and none of these talks are copyrighted. And you can copy, photocopy, do whatever you want. And the reason why is because this is not mine. Does that make sense? None of it's mine. And in the end, you will come to see truth is not yours either. You don't own it. Right? Now, if a spirit's connecting with a person who's charging all the time, then a lot of spirits particularly celestial spirits, get quite upset with this process. Can you see why? Like they're giving this information for free that they have received freely, and then somebody is charging for it. Straight away that sets up a dynamic, doesn't it? Now a lot of people then argue, and on the natural love path you hear this argument a lot. You've got to have some kind of financial transaction, right, in order for people to value the information. You hear that quite a lot, right? And it's totally false, by the way. If a person doesn't value the information, or they only value the information based on money, then what does that tell you about them? They're only interested in the money, in the end, aren't they? So if I put 1,000, so I'm sure if we said $1,000 a weekend, right, in the end these courses would be in high demand. Because everybody thinks $1,000 must be worth a lot, you know? And this is the thing that's happened with JZ Knight, like charging $5,000 for the week or whatever. That's a lot of money, is it not? And then they start saying, well, if your attraction doesn't bring it in, then obviously you've got problems with your life and so forth. And honestly, this is not a very honest thing to do, because how does a person in Africa pay $5,000 US to learn truth? They're not, like, they're never going to see $5,000 US if they live 20 lifetimes in Africa, right? Let alone one. So how can you then limit the information to them? You see, this is the problem that we have a lot of times. Now, the spirits that are attracted to that kind of processing are all going to be on the natural love path. Divine love path spirits are not going to be attracted to that. Divine love path spirits are not going to be attracted to a person who's not humble. So one of the key things that we'll be developing in you over the next 12 months, if you want to come along, is your humility. Which means we're going to be addressing this issue of your willingness to experience your own emotions. Right? And we're going to be quite confronting with that. Because without that, you don't have good mediumship, whether you believe you do or not, even if you had it from a child. Does that make sense to everyone? So humility is a major, important emotion to develop. And you can see under the points of humility that I've listed there, that many mediums believe they are in a much better condition than their true condition from God's perspective. And they believe that because they can see spirits and talk to spirits, that they must have a far better condition than the average person around them. And many of them believe with that, and go forward even further with that belief, that if you try to correct their emotional condition, they get very upset and angry with you. Right? Now, if you are one of those persons, you are not going to enjoy our sessions coming up with mediumship. Does that make sense? Because the sessions are going to confront you on lots of levels. And in particular, they're going to confront you emotionally. A lot of the exercises we'll be doing in this meeting, in these mediumship sessions that are coming up, will be based around developing your humility, developing your resistance, getting rid of your resistance to experiencing emotion, and getting rid of your resistance to hearing the truth, and getting rid of your resistance, which is called doubt, to hearing truths that are of much higher nature than the Earth's actually capable of receiving currently. We want to get groups of mediums in that condition where they can actually receive these higher truths. The only way that's going to happen is for your condition to get very, very close to a celestial spirit's condition. That's the only way it's going to happen. So what we want to do is focus on helping that occur. And humility is one of the main qualities. Another quality is this quality of modesty. Does everyone understand the difference between modesty and humility? Anybody has a guess with that? Modesty is recognizing your own limitations. It's a bit different than humility, because humility you will have and retain even when you have no limitations. In other words, when you become a celestial spirit here on earth yourself, you will have very few limitations, and you will still have humility. Modesty is understanding where you're currently at and what your limitations are of where you're currently at. Does that make sense? Because humility is something you retain as a quality all of your life. Now, the quality of modesty is so important as a medium, because if you develop modesty, what you're doing is you're knowing that, hang on a sec, I've still got this emotion of anger in there with men. So anything that I channel for a man is going to be tainted with my emotion of anger towards men. And it's a modest point of view to see that. Does that make sense? So if I've got angry with men inside of me, and I'm attracting a spirit who has no anger with men at all, to talk to this person who happens to be a man, what's going to happen is their lovely message to this man will get modified through my anger with men and delivered to this man. And if I don't understand that limitation, I'm going to be drawn into saying that actually, no, this spirit said that to you, this spirit said that to you, you've got to listen to that. And I actually start dumping my men anger, my emotion that's unresolved within me, onto this man, who I'm meant to be helping. Is that a loving? It's not a loving prospect, is it? Now let's flip it over. Let's say I'm actually doing some mediumship to help a spirit. And a lot of spirits are surrounding me, and there happens to be quite a few male spirits surrounding me. So they come along to talk to me. What are they going to feel from me if I've got this anger with men? My anger with men. is going to be dumping on them. It's going to be quite unpleasant for them to stay in my company, even though I'm telling them divine truth. It's going to be quite unpleasant for them to stay in my company while I've got that emotion. Does that make sense? And so they'll want to maybe leave, or they'll only be able to stay a short time, or they'll listen to you and then realise, oh, hang on a sec, she's saying a lot of that thing and stuff because she's actually angry with men. Like, it's got nothing to do with truth. They don't want to hear your personal truth. They're sick to death of hearing personal truth. Can you understand that? If you've listened for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years for people's truth, all sorts of truth, like, you know, like you imagine here on earth that you investigated 100 religions. Are you going to be very tempted to investigate the 101st if the person doing the investigation with you is angry with you? Of course not, right? Because you've already got all this emotion of just being tired of hearing this personal crap come from everybody. Does that make sense? And this is how a spirit would feel. So, even if I'm helping the spirit, I need to have modesty. Just because it's helping a spirit, it does not mean you are better than them. And just because you can channel to a person who can't channel, it doesn't mean you're better than that person either. And if you believe you are, you've got a problem that needs to be resolved if you want to be at one with God. Does that make sense there? And so it's very important these two qualities are developed in the medium. Now the problem is, on the earth today, is mediums get glorified many times. Is that not the case? So imagine for the moment you have a problem with humility. You start channeling some really good information. Let's say you have progressed from the first sphere to the third sphere. Now you're starting to connect with some really good stuff, right? What's going to happen? People around you are going to be very impressed, are they not? And when they start getting impressed with you and you still have this problem with humility, what are you going to start doing? Can you see that you might start getting to feel like, you know, I'm pretty good, eh? I'm pretty good. This is going good. I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, I think I'll start charging now, actually, kind of thing. This is pretty good, right? But I'm in high demand, and you know it's not going to be donation based anymore. I'm going to say $5,000 a pop now. You know, do it. You know, one of these popular medium styles that are around today who are charging megabucks for their services. Right? Now, what's happening is your condition is worsening if that happens. Right? Because you're getting into a haughty state. And when you get into a haughty state, there's no more humility. You're going to stop connecting with spirits who are willing to transmit that kind of information. Can you see how a quality that you might have had at the beginning with your mediumship might change when you start getting the glory that comes your way? So one of the things you're going to have to work on quite a lot is how do you respond to glory? Do you want it? Because if you want it, you are going to have some major issues down the track dealing with your mediumship. Right? That's a very important factor to bear in mind. So these two qualities are a must to develop. They are a must to develop. And they are the qualities that we are actually going to focus on more so than any other quality. They are the qualities we're going to focus on. We're going to push all of your buttons in those two areas if you are willing to, if you're wanting to do mediumship. And the reason why is you cannot help any person on earth or any person in the spirit world with a pure heart if you lack those qualities. Does that make sense there? It's a really important factor. Really important factors, those two qualities. Less so much of a factor is your belief systems. But they are still very important. When I say it's less of a factor, if I have humility, then I'm willing to listen to a person confronting my belief. But if I don't have humility, then I won't let my beliefs be confronted. Can you see that? Now, many mediums have belief systems that come from sixth sphere or from natural love spirits. That's just a byproduct of the fact that there are far more spirits on the natural love path than there are on the divine love path. So there are going to be more spirits communicating those beliefs to Earth, and because those beliefs are lower beliefs in terms of the truths, they are the ones with the most rapport with people on Earth. You can see that? Rapport, remember, is created by conditions, soul conditions. So if my soul condition is second sphere, I'm going to connect to second sphere soul conditioned spirits. And what truths do they have compared to a celestial spirit? They might have very little compared to a celestial spirit, right? So I will start transmitting truths that are actually not true if I stay in that condition. And if I'm not aware of their condition and aware of what beliefs are actually a part of that condition, then I will start transmitting belief systems to the Earth. And the Earth is full of false belief systems. And you know what? The spirit world is full of spirits in pain because of the false belief systems they picked up while they're on Earth. So we want to not do that anymore. We don't want to transmit these false belief systems to Earth. What we want is we want the truth to be transmitted to Earth, which is going to mean that our belief systems, whatever they are going to be confronted. And if you're not willing to confront your belief systems, then you're going to find development on the divine love path very difficult. Because most belief systems are of the mind. They are of the intellect. You follow me? A desire for you to know is what creates a belief system. On the divine love path, you are going to lose your desire to know. Instead, what you are going to do is you are going to experience rather than know. And then you will really know in your heart, in your soul. That makes sense to everyone, doesn't it? Yeah. So any belief systems are of the mind. So therefore, what's going to happen is your mind will get in the way of everything you do. Now, when you channeling, there are a couple of different types of channeling that I mentioned later. And when you're channeling, you might be doing trance channeling. A trance channeling is when the spirit form and the soul of the person steps back from the physical body. And the spirit actually connects and overcloaks the physical body. And the voice might even change and everything might change. You know, the mannerisms will change of the person and everything, right? That's called trance mediumship. Now, there is a common misconception on Earth that when you're doing trance mediumship, you're the most accurate. But what have I said? All transmission is dependent upon soul condition. So why would your accuracy be different? You see, it's the soul condition that determines your accuracy, right? Not whether you're doing trance mediumship or not. Now, a lot of spirits enjoy trance mediumship because they don't have to wait for you to relay everything. In other words, let's say I'm a spirit, Brian's the medium, Ray is the person he's talking to. I say to Brian, hello Brian, it's lovely to see you. And then I've got to wait for Brian to say to Ray, oh, he says, hello Ray, it's lovely to see you, or whatever, right? And then and now Ray, please look at your emotion about such and such. And Brian then has to say, well, he's saying, please look at your emotion, Ray, about such and such. Now I'm waiting all this time, right? Now, it'll be far better if I could just overcloak Brian and just say all of these things straight to Ray. Does that make sense? Obviously, the communication is far more effective from my point of view because I can say all of these things quite rapidly rather than waiting for this transmission, acknowledgement, and then I've got to go again, and it's a stop and start process. So obviously transmediumship has its benefits for me as a spirit, so a lot of spirits love doing it. But don't you believe as a medium that it means you're more accurate. Because the accuracy of the information is still dependent upon your soul condition. What I mean? All right.
Who's free will in that process?
I'm allowed to step back from my spirit form. That's just me going out of body like I do every night when I go to sleep. Right, so every night that you go to sleep, you go out of body. Your soul and your spirit body are in the spirit world, you're doing things up there, setting up events, having a chat with some friends, doing all those kind of things. Yeah, you're doing much more, by the way, but I won't mention all those other things that you're doing. But what actually happens is you are out of body at that point. Your body is in a state where another spirit could use it if you chose to do so. Now, as a medium, you can choose to go out of body at any time, and your body can be used by a spirit directly. Right? And this happens all the time, by the way, for many people who do trance mediumship. And you will develop in your mediumship to the point where you will feel comfortable with doing that. Carol?
And is it dangerous? Like, if you just stay there?
They're connecting with your body is totally dependent upon your will. So ones like, say, Barbara and some like that on Earth, it has become dangerous for them because, say, Barbara's free will is that I'm going to be permanently connected to this sixth sphere spirit. And so the majority of the time, he isn't himself anymore, he's the sixth sphere spirit using his body. Does that make sense? And that can be quite a dangerous thing to do, not from a physical point of view, but more from a developmental point of view. Because what we start doing is we start assuming, because I can do all of these wonderful things and I can levitate and I can do this and I can do that, that it's me that's doing it. And remember what I said about humility?
Asumir que como puedo hacer todas estas cosas, no sé qué, soy yo realmente quien lo hace. O sea, ahí hay que ponerle el cómo.
It ain't you doing it, it's the spirit doing it, right? And if we start thinking it's me, we stop developing ourselves. And if you stop developing yourself, what happens then? You get stuck. And so Barbara is one of those people who are stuck in a certain condition on Earth, the first sphere condition on Earth, but who is a very, very good connection with the spirit who keeps him in a sixth sphere state for the majority of the time. So that's definitely possible for you too, but I don't recommend it.
If I'm not sleeping,
Can we wait for the mic?
after yesterday, I didn't sleep practically at all last night.
Yeah.
But I want to know, when I'm lying there going, I wish I was sleeping, I'd like to be sleeping, and I thought I tried just about every trick in the book last night,
when I woke up extremely tired this morning, does my spirit body still leave, even if I'm not in a sleep state?
No. That's why you wake up tired, because your body doesn't feel refreshed, and your spirit form doesn't feel refreshed. Yeah. So look at the emotional reasons why you couldn't allow yourself to sleep, because there are emotional reasons. And it's to do with the emotions you were facing yesterday, as you know. Yeah, just you can't turn off it, so go into it emotionally. Like, many of you will wake up 3 o'clock, and this is an aside, but many of you will wake up 3 o'clock in the morning feeling quite distressed from a dream, wanting to go back to sleep. My suggestion is don't do that. You wake up 3 o'clock in the morning processing emotion, process the emotion. You know, cry for 2 hours, then you'll feel like sleeping for sure. All right? And let yourself do that. But just allow yourself to do it when it comes, is for the emotional stuff. But getting back to the spirit, so with the mediumship, we need to make sure that if whatever type of mediumship we're doing, whether it be automatic writing, whether it be direct mediumship, when I say direct mediumship, whether it be relayed type of the mediumship, whether it be trance mediumship, or whether it be soul-to-soul mediumship, which is where you will develop to, any form of mediumship, my soul modifies the contents of the message. So can you see why getting rid of a lot of the emotional baggage is so important? Right? Because if you're, the problem with being a medium is that people will look to you for accurate information. In the process of that, if the information, and you love your mediumship, right? It's an enjoyable gift to utilise because you want to help people. But if your soul is modifying the information going to that person, then obviously now you have a culpability as a teacher for what that person is receiving. Now that has its own law of compensation issues associated with it. If your intention is to retain your emotions in a first sphere condition and do that, then there will be law of compensation issues associated with that. Does that make sense? The key is to not be afraid of them, of the law of compensation issues, because they're all based around your intention. If your intention is to deal with your emotions and your intention is to be modest, then what will happen is you'll say to yourself, this guy's come along to do some mediumship with me, and I could do a channeling and I can feel the spirit there that wants to talk to him, but I must make a proviso at the start, or let's call it a disclaimer, and that is, I'm sorry, my friend, but I am actually very angry with men. So some of this mediumship that I'm going to do for you may come across quite angry with men, and if you feel that, just discount that, because that's probably me. It's not this spirit. Right? However, if you're channeling his mother, who is still angry with men, it might be awesome to give him that message, right? Because if, in terms of accuracy as a medium, if his mother's angry with men, you're angry with men, then you're a great medium to give him what for, right? And can transmit the message as mum is transmitting it. So can you see you need to know what your condition is? And also understand the condition of the person. Let's just be honest.
But won't you be channeling or attracting spirits that are similar to your soul conditioning?
Not always, because remember, in the section that I haven't gone through and I won't, I've actually said that there's the law of attraction is working to actually draw who is going to communicate with each person. So I'm the person who's visiting the medium. Let's say Brian's the medium, and let's say Tristan's the spirit. Right? All of us are being attracted together because of our soul conditions. So that being said, like my condition, not just the medium's condition, is determining which spirit is talking to me. You follow me? Yes. Because of that, it's the amalgamation of my condition, the medium's condition, and the spirit's condition that will determine the content of the message. So it's not all just about the medium's condition, but my focus is on the medium in terms of developing their condition. But the condition of the person coming to the medium and the condition of the spirit coming to the medium will determine the contents of the message. Now, if you're a clear medium, you will be able to say, oh, wow, your mum's here, mate. She is so angry, hey? She's really angry with men, right? You know, and you'll be able to say all these things because you're feeling that from her, and you'll be able to accurately describe her condition to the person you're helping, and then you'll be able to say the message, and then you can put a proviso on the end of, yeah, but I don't know if I'd be listening too much to her at the moment because she's really angry with men, right? And she needs to deal with that anger. And you may actually be able to talk to the spirit about her anger even and help her if you want to help. And you then are really effective as a medium. Can you see the interaction and how it's occurring? It's the law of attraction. So let's say there was a medium in front of all of you right now transmitting information to you. Well, what determines the contents of that information are all of your amalgamated law of attraction based on your soul condition. The spirits, whoever they are, wanting to connect to you and their soul condition, and the soul condition of the medium will determine what information comes across to you.
O sea, la ley de atracción de los espíritus y su condición álmica, sean los que sean los espíritus, eso es otra cosa en la amalgama, en la agrupación de cosas. Los espíritus, su ley y su condición álmica junto a la...
And the soul condition of the medium will determine what information comes across to you. So let's say we had a whole room full of angry people. What kind of spirits are we generally going to attract? A whole group of angry spirits. And let's say the medium is in a similar state. So we're going to have a pretty interesting time with that, aren't we? Can you see that? But then as our condition rises, and let's say what often happens with mediumship is everyone who gathers in a group is sort of inquisitive, but in a very physical and what would you say, making fun of way, inquisitive. So let's say that's the general spirit of the audience. What kind of spirits are going to be attracted? Spirits who feel much the same way, who want to make fun of you. And if the medium's in a good condition, they'll be able to transmit that through you, and you'll get a very interesting interaction. Now, this is all described in all sorts of mediumistic type of literature where these kind of events occurring. But the big issue is for most, We don't see the law of attraction in the spirit world, whereas the spirits do. So when we're sitting here, we don't see our collective condition. But our spirit friends can see every single emotional injury in every single one of you. Right? And the collective emotional condition of every single one of us adds together, right, to create a general soul condition for this group. And that soul condition for this group attracts a group of spirits who want to either manipulate that condition or feel similar to that condition. And there'll be other spirits who are very interested in that condition, and there'll be all sorts of spirits attracted. The issue for you is you can't see them. For most of us, we can't see them. But they see you. So it's very much easier for a spirit to describe to you what's going on at the soul level than it is for you to describe what's going on at the soul level here. Everyone follow that? Matt, you had a question or?
So the spirits can see the soul condition of everybody. Is that dependent on where the spirits are in their body, or can they just see that like they're very natural?
If they're a celestial spirit, they see your actual soul condition. If they are a spirit on the natural love path, and particularly a first sphere spirit, what they see is the colours in your body. They know that that colour represents that emotion. Or the way they look at it more is, that's a colour I can use to my benefit, or that's not a colour I can use to my benefit. That's how they see it. So they don't even really see your soul condition. All they see is the injury and how they can manipulate it. So let's say you're a quite developed person spiritually. However, and in love you're quite developed. However, you've got a problem with alcohol. Every time, you go out to drink, you have a tendency to want to just get lotto. And that's driven by a sad emotion in you that you haven't released yet. So that's the case. So a spirit won't see all of your lovely qualities and all of the nice things. A first sphere spirit won't see all that. A celestial spirit will, but a first sphere spirit won't. What they will see is, he likes getting drunk. I like getting drunk too. Let's get together, right? And so what he'll do is influence you into places that will actually cause you to drink more, and then overcloak you so that he can have a drink as well and feel the same emotions. So I can be very mediumistic and actually be there getting drunk at the pub for the sake of the spirit who's with me. And that's why many people go totally unconscious, and yet they're still standing up drinking. Because no longer is the person connected to their body anymore. Mostly it's the spirit connected to the body, just forcing more down. Right? And being out of character. And being out of character too, because it's actually the spirit's character. That's being expressed. Right? So that's what's happening a lot of times with those kind of things. So a person can be very mediumistic, and that mediumistic ability can be used by spirits to get what they want if I've got a certain soul condition. Right? So it all gets back to soul condition. It all gets back to that. So the key is, if you want to develop your mediumship, is to develop your soul condition. That's the key. And it's quite simple when you understand that. All I've got to do is develop the soul condition. If I'm attracting some angry spirits, okay, I must be feeling some rage in here that I'm not recognising. So what I need to do is start releasing this and getting connected with it and releasing it. Once I release that, do you think I'm going to attract those same spirits? Nowhere near as much. They might still be attracted because they might want to have a chat with me to ask me how I did it. But they won't be connected to me trying to make me angry anymore because it's impossible. They can't make me angry anymore.
Bueno, podemos comentar ya aquí para descansar y seguir en la siguiente parte también muy llena de cosas. Esta ya tiene muchísimas, si os parece. Si estáis vivas, claro, porque... ¿Vale?
Si no estamos en trance.
Si no estáis en trances. Porque es tremendo la cantidad de implicaciones que tienen cosas tan simples, ¿no?
Claro, como el reflejo de lo que vemos aquí en la práctica, la simpleza es una constante, pero al mismo tiempo el hecho de tomar conciencia de nuestra condición y la importancia, un poco a eso, así terminamos la primera parte que vimos, cómo sigue todo en torno a esto, al uso del libre albedrío, como una constante, ¿no? Y hasta dónde llega el impacto sería de esa condición. Yo tomé varias.
Sí.
Es la primera vez que habla de la modestia. Me gustó mucho que lo plantee así, ¿no? Como la claridad entre la diferencia entre modestia y humildad. Me gustó. También esta cuestión directamente proporcional de, bueno, a mayor arrogancia, menor información. Estuve experimentando estos días, estando en Fontana, que comparto un poco de mi experiencia personal habitualmente para ilustrar en la secuencia, y bueno, volví a la casa que dejé y cómo me volví muy arrogante. Esto de tener la verdad y de alguna manera asumir ciertas, de una hidalguía, sentía yo que era como algo una osadía, ¿no? Pero al mismo tiempo me di cuenta de lo soberbia y lo arrogante que me volví. O sea, me voy ahí ya con esa actitud de...
Que es la defensa en la que vivimos en la que vivimos la herida, sí, y nos hacemos arrogantes. Yo que no he tenido hermanos, por ejemplo, también se me ha visto mucho eso en la vida y cosas así muy raras, y yo también iba diciéndolas, hablando, soy muy bocazas a veces, que uno no se entera. Yo no sé si los espíritus me estaban ahí también manipulando.
Sí, yo por eso siento. Sí, era volver al lugar y esa cuestión de, claro, por eso digo, a mayor arrogancia, menor información en cuanto a una información fidedigna. Entonces, conecté eso con esto de decir, todo lo que ven es la herida y la manera en que pueden manipular. Entonces, ya claro, yo veía eso y agradezco mucho la actitud que tuvo Gustavo, el papá de mis hijos, que me lo dijo. Si te escucharas cómo hablas, te darías cuenta. O sea, él todo el tiempo me ponía así como, estás imponiendo,
Sí.
me marcaba todo ese tiempo con mucha predisposición, realmente algo que él no hacía. Me dice, venís a confrontar. No, vos no escuchás, me decía, no estás escuchando, no me estás viendo. Y me decía así, como, no sé con quién estás hablando, pero no conmigo. Eso me decía, y fue muy elocuente. La verdad que fueron días muy interesantes. El primer día ya tenía ganas de salir de ahí, y venirme a mi cueva. Y por supuesto que un poco también, viendo esa lógica de la resistencia y de esa actitud, me invité a quedarme, digamos, un poco, ¿no? No obedecer a esa cuestión de huir y comprender de que de alguna manera lo que estaba sucediendo tenía también su beneficio. Era una oportunidad de...
Pero fíjate cómo están relacionadas además las tres cosas, añadiendo las expectativas, ¿no? Nosotros con nuestra falta de humildad, en el sentido de que no queremos sentir la herida, esa falta de deseo, esa falta de esa emoción de humildad, que curioso que le llame emoción de humildad, pero esa falta dice, vale, entonces ya no soy consciente de mis limitaciones, y fíjate cómo rima eso con el tema de las expectativas, ¿no? Lo que ya no me veo limitado a esperar que la gente cambie todo lo que yo quiera o más, etcétera, ¿no? Ahí hay mucho... Sí.
Claro, sí, sí, sí. Y que está sucediendo. Y agradezco y celebro este poquito de humildad dentro de que me permite en un momento reaccionar frente a la propuesta, digamos, que me hace de esa declaración, de decir, a ver, como que hay un atisbo en ese momento de deseo, que digo, bueno, a ver si vale, me quedo, me escucho y veo, repaso, como que sí. Tengo muchísimo por sentir, no estuve desde el miércoles más, entre el incendio que comenté al principio y estos 2 días muy interesantes para mí, y venía como a decantar eso hoy ya, hoy, mañana, pero muy valioso en cuanto a información que uno recibe, ¿sí? Todo el tiempo.
Porque fijaros que una de las intuiciones que vimos también en los primeros vídeos de este taller o de otras, no sé si en estos, es cuando nos puede venir la intuición de que estamos canalizando siempre a nuestra alma, que es la creación más grande de Dios, ¿no? O sea, nuestro cuerpo, es que nosotros no lo entendemos así. Sí, es una... Así es, surgía cuando hablaba de Anastasia, ¿no? Que decía, el cuerpo, o sea, el hecho de que tú te materialices un cuerpo, como estamos en la primera vida, en la primera parte de la vida, no nos damos cuenta de que en realidad el alma es tan poderosa como para hacerlo de Anastasia. Entonces Anastasia dice, bueno, yo me voy a proyectar aquí con mi gran deseo bien intencionado de ayudar a los humanos, me voy a proyectar un cuerpo desde la quinta dimensión que tengo mucho poder, además voy a enrolar aquí a todos mis colegas para que me ayuden, unos se van a proyectar como mi hijo y no sé qué. Y entonces es como, está canalizándose a sí misma, y lo decía así Miller. Entonces tenemos que ponernos, o sea, es muy divertido ver estos ejemplos tan básicos,
claro,
porque nos colocan ya un poco ahí con esa picardía de decir, no, es que siempre estamos canalizando nada más y nada menos que la creación, sin que eso nos ponga arrogantes, pero el alma es una verdad, parece divina, que es la creación más grande de Dios, siempre estamos canalizándonos a nosotros mismos.
Sí, qué bueno, sirve, ilustra mucho, claramente.
Y pues lo dijo así Jesús, pues ella, en vez de ser un espíritu como Ramta o Crayon, que se lo pronuncian en inglés, el famoso Crión de con K, en vez de esos que cobran mucho dinero al final del canal y que al final se le pasa, vimos en el ejemplo del anterior vídeo, se le ha pasado al amor divino y la ha liado con la chica canal de Ranta, la señora, la Knight esta. Claro, en vez de eso, Anastasia es directamente, ala, voy allí yo, y ya ni siquiera una persona, yo me proyecto mi cuerpo y les cuento eso, que bueno, que ha servido, que tiene también su positividad, que ha servido para que mucha gente, una nueva oleada de inspiración, habrá habido muchos rusos que se han abierto a guías del camino del amor natural, se han ido al campo, se han casado, no sé cuántos, y se han quedado ahí con a amar la naturaleza, no sé qué. Y ahora, bueno, eso. Entonces, claro, es ese canalizarse uno a sí mismo, es un gesto a la vez esa inconsciencia que decíamos en el anterior vídeo, de no saber calibrar bien eso, esa relación tan sutil entre fines y medios, y porque no tenemos colocado bien el fin como el alma no está en el camino del amor divino, pues en realidad hay esos despistes con hacerlo por el bien, las cosas, las buenas intenciones.
Sí, sí.
Eso era otra cosa que...
No, y rescato, en un momento lo dice él, lo de experimentar. Esta declaración me permitió abrirme y fue muy distinto. Fue muy, muy distinto el resto del día hasta hoy que volví, desde el momento que me permití experimentar. Desde otro lugar, ya no era la mente y era, incluso ayer estuve triste a la tarde, como que ya si uno baja las defensas y ahí aparece la humildad, digamos, el deseo de sentir y ser honesto. Cambió la experiencia. Bueno, pasó a ser una experiencia, más que un proceso mental.
Sí, bueno, y hablando de las cosas del taller, fíjate, y fijaros, Ana, no sé, ahora si quieres también di algo, pero antes de que se me olvide, en el tema este de que tenemos eso tan famoso en la imaginación, de todo lo que ha habido, de burlas, de sesiones de canalización supuestas de espíritus que están, o sea, que se supone que descubrían que eran falsos y que no había espíritu realmente. Muchas de ellas entrarían dentro de esta categoría de las que he hablado aquí, donde si la gente que va a una sesión está vibrando en esa cosa de que no se fían, que les gusta en realidad que sea una burla y que todo sea mentira y que les gusta que la canal se vea ridiculizada, entonces los espíritus precisamente van a reflejar eso, igual un poco que los niños, o sea, los niños reflejan la emoción de los adultos, entonces se reúnen muchos adultos en torno a un espíritu, allá por el 1900, pongamos, hace un siglo y medio, lo que sea, se reúnen ahí todos, cantidad de gente, 5 o 7 personas, vamos ahí a reírnos de esta medium, bueno, le pagamos ahí bastante dinero, pero es que nos gusta esto porque no sabemos lo que pasa, nos vamos a burlar. Y entonces, toda esa condición álmica se suma y es muy poderosa, son muchas almas, 7, o pongamos. Y la medium, la pobre, que hace ahí, vienen unos espíritus, a lo mejor vienen 100 espíritus y proyectan ectoplasmas y no sé cuántos, o lo que sea. Imaginaros, ¿no? Esto es a lo que se refería un poco aquí, que muchas de esos medium, quizá muchas, no lo sé, no eran en realidad engañadoras de nadie, ¿no? Sino que era precisamente que la gente estaba recibiendo lo que querían y querían venir a una sesión donde, qué científicos somos nosotros, mira qué gilipolleces pasan aquí en la sesión de mediumnidades. Entonces, fíjate cómo aclara esto, quizá.
Claro, sí, sí, para mí sí aclara.
Lo que eso es muy famoso en la historia, ¿no? Que es lo que ha quedado bastante. Cuando la gente le hablas de estas cosas, como ha habido películas, yo creo que me podéis coincidir conmigo en eso de que la imagen que tenemos quizá por las películas y demás va por ahí un poco.
Claro.
Bueno, Ana P, estás viva aún.
Sí. No, me quedé también, tomé nota de la humildad y la modestia y la arrogancia, como para hacerlas más presentes. Yo, como ustedes comentaban, a medida que pasa el tiempo y esta posibilidad de uno poder ver lo arrogante, lo fácilmente arrogante que soy. Eso, digamos, como que lo que va mostrando AJ, así me va mostrando cosas de mi...
Al escucharlo, te has sentido identificada, aquí estamos tres que nos habremos sentido bastante identificados con la posibilidad de haber caído en actitudes muy arrogantes en caso de que hubiéramos tenido más desarrollo en algún don, ¿verdad? Sí, se siente como algo muy cercano.
Sí, 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 sí. Eso de la humildad y la modestia, creo que alguna vez les comenté, yo como que me veo así como que mirando por sobre el hombro, sería la imagen. Sí, me doy cuenta y como que si tuviera, me cuesta o no me quiero bajar del caballo, y esto que vos decís muestra las heridas, como que de parar y ver qué estás haciendo, ¿viste? ¿Qué querés demostrar? Una cosa así. Eso es lo que me pasa, así que bueno. Claro, agradecida con eso también de que es una experiencia, y de que es una experiencia en esto de conocernos, y lo que dice Jesús, como que esto es uno, el que se expresa es nuestra alma, no la que se expresa en esta circunstancia, y lo que la mayoría de las veces no quiero ver. Eso, básicamente.
Es muy jorobada la cosa, porque claro, hablamos de que la modestia es ser consciente de las limitaciones, pero cuando te va bien realmente y eres un medium de estos que puede cobrar mucho dinero, ya ahí ves, eso de repente es una ilimitación, o sea, ya es como, he manifestado una falta de límite, o sea, qué bien, y no sé cuánto. Entonces, claro, es muy paradójico porque como no se entiende que en realidad hay dos grandes tipos de espíritus y está la posibilidad de la relación directa con Dios frente a la relación indirecta que ya tenemos todos con más o menos fuerza a través de la conciencia y del hecho de las leyes que son amorosas, aunque lo sentimos pocas veces, pues claro, al faltar eso, de repente es muy paradójico eso de la modestia, ser consciente de tus limitaciones, pero tú dile eso a una persona que está cobrando mucho dinero, no sé cuántos, no, pero mira, mis limitaciones, ¿no? ¿Dónde? ¿Qué hacemos?
Claro. Además, es como, de alguna forma siento una correspondencia entre nuestros deseos, ahora que estuvimos viendo cómo opera, ¿no? Desde ese lugar lo que realmente estamos deseando, y ese anhelo, la famosa tercerización que venimos viendo, pues yo también anoté esto, gratis igual, y acá en Argentina usamos una palabra berreta, o de baja calidad.
Anda.
Entonces, claro, la palabra berreta, esto es berreta, o sea, es como que, bueno, dura poco tiempo, o sea, sí, ni siquiera es la palabra económico, es berreta, sí, de baja calidad. Entonces yo recuerdo cuando yo empecé a hablar en aquel tiempo de un curso de milagros, me decía, no, pero no hagas gratis, me decía una persona que yo conocía, porque gratis, y ahí me acordé cuando hablaba Jesús, es sinónimo de berreta. Si vos haces algo gratis, no tiene valor. No, claro, y es lo que acaba de decir Jesús, claro, por eso lo cotizado en nuestro mundo, para el mundo anárquico, digamos, claro, lo cotizado es lo que vale, a lo que anhelamos, y por supuesto que entonces creamos esa distorsión, y no nos parece. Alguien que puedes usar, dice, la verdad no es tuya, anoté también eso. Me hizo acordar justamente a la experiencia que viví ahora, ¿no? Este fin de semana, que decía, no, la verdad no fue el fin de, bueno, jueves, miércoles, jueves. La verdad no es tuya, o sea, bájate de ahí.
Claro, y fijaos cómo ese gesto de supuesto profesionalismo y no sé cuántos es ya automático, está relacionado a todo lo que hemos visto. O sea, es una actitud contra el diseño de Dios y que refuerza las ideas supuestamente científicas de que Dios no pudo crear una tierra ya perfecta, porque mira, tenemos la ciencia que demuestra muchas cosas que parece que no son ciertas, aunque están datadas, sobre los homínidos y no sé qué, porque lo que nos dice la verdad divina es que hay unos cuerpos iniciales perfectos en una tierra heredada de forma perfecta para que las almas elijan ahí, y luego hay una degeneración. Entonces, lo que se registra, que no sabemos la datación si estará trucada, porque hay mucha mala leche en las altas esferas científicas, el hecho de que ahora conozcamos solo unos nombres, Darwin, por ejemplo, que es casi un dios, cuando ha habido hay mucha ciencia de la evolución paralela a Darwin, etcétera. Entonces, todo eso está trucado en el fondo y todo es contra Dios. O sea, toda esa maniobra de decir, no, porque lo gratis es eso, fíjate todo lo que conlleva, porque eso automáticamente nos pone contra el sentido del regalo y la maravilla que todo en el fondo lo más importante es gratis y que los niños, un niño no haría ese gesto, ¿no? Pero nosotros crecemos y entonces automáticamente asumimos unas cosas que ya llevan todo eso junto. Eso es como una maleta llena de eso. Por un lado, justificar la ciencia, aunque ni pensamos que lo estemos haciendo, una supuesta ciencia apolítica, neutral y mentira total, pero que se ha preparado durante siglos, ya casi todo este tema del evolucionismo malentendido, no sé cuántos, está todo junto ahí.
Sí, Van, y como lo estuvimos viendo en el de crianza, la muerte del deseo que lleva esto, porque esta combinación que se hace justamente desde la carencia, o sea, se elimina esto de la gratuidad, de la abundancia, y se pasa a ese paradigma, ¿no? De que la cotización, el valor asociado a la envergadura, a la calidad, a la naturaleza, incluso supuesta naturaleza.
Claro, y como la crea desde las emociones.
Claro, totalmente. Entonces, hasta los niños, porque lo veo en mis nietos, renuncian ya a esta edad, estamos hablando de 5 años, a que el deseo es algo gratuito y que se puede desarrollar ampliamente. Está totalmente condicionado a las posibilidades. Entonces, ellos anhelan, por ejemplo, ese querer es poder está determinado por las condiciones externas. Ya, 5 años hablo, 5 años, o sea, es muy, muy pequeña pero ya construyó esa asociación de que no puedo desear tal cosa. Entonces, claro, y así como vemos acá, estamos todo el tiempo creando, que lo vimos también con los videos y el desarrollo del deseo, determina nuestra experiencia, en definitiva, de alguna manera, y eso, sobre todo. Entonces, claro.
Qué increíble.
Tanto acá como en el mundo espiritual.
Qué pronto aprendemos la desconfianza esa. Es una vibración emocional muy profunda. Claro, es un deseo marcado en el alma, un deseo de de ir contra el diseño divino, que por ley del deseo, el deseo es como el rey, es lo más importante que nada. Y sobre todo un deseo armónico con todas las leyes de Dios, ya no digamos. Pero claro, hay que hacer mucho esfuerzo para que eso, claro, por eso es tan pronto que se le hace tanto esfuerzo sin darnos cuenta a los niños para que no sigan por el mal camino, claro.
Sí.
Qué raro.
Sí, ahí. Y claro, y la importancia como padres, porque dentro del esquema de crianza, si alguien lo quiere ver, en el esquema simplemente sin ir a todo el desarrollo de la transcripción del taller, pero ya en el esquema, cuando, no me acuerdo el punto, si es 5, el punto de responsabilidad de los padres, dice justamente que un padre que renuncia a sus propios deseos, lo que está enseñando es eso. Y yo basta mirarme, digamos, para darme cuenta de todo lo que en desarmonía a mis deseos. Le contaba el otro día a Ana Pilar que todavía tengo un delay o sea, un espacio que hay entre lo que siento que creo que es mi deseo y lo que realmente deseo. Se ve que la pulsión está, digamos, estoy empezando a mover la rueda en ese sentido, mínimamente con un poco de humildad para reconocer, porque justamente a Ana Pilar le cancelé una actividad que teníamos porque digo, bueno, aparece esta oportunidad y ahí me doy cuenta, pero yo deseo otra cosa. Ajá. Esto me gusta, y empiezo a sentir la cosquillita y esa emoción. Y ahí recién digo, pero tuve que recibir esa oportunidad para contraponer entre esta actividad y esta actividad. No, mi deseo es esta, pero aparece a posteriori, ¿no? Yo primero creo que estoy yendo bien, que va por este camino, como que sigo un poco la inercia y aparece. Y ahora, por ejemplo, me confronta con mi perfil de ser buena, educada, responsable, ¿no? Ya hice este compromiso, me quedo con las ganas de hacer lo que quería hacer, debo cumplir. Y ahí empiezo otra vez la adulta seria contra la niña que realmente toma contacto con esa posibilidad y que he creado, por eso surge que alguien me proponga hacer algo y conectar con esa emoción y recién ahí, sí, todavía está desprolija, entre comillas, todavía no pasa directo, pero sí la pude experimentar ya en el cuerpo.
Interesante,
Esa información.
lo de que hace falta para el contraste, eso está muy curioso. Oye, os iba a decir, para descansar un poco, si quiere ya comentar, para finalizar algo esta parte, Ana P, y me decís si 10 o 15 minutos para decir una hora fija, por si acaso Marisol está despierta y le puedo decir ya una hora fija para dentro de 10, 15 minutos, o como veáis,
bueno,
o 20, o media hora.
Lo que vos decidas, Iván, son 12 menos 5.
Sí.
Por aquí.
Pues hay cuarto, por ejemplo, si queréis.
Dale.
¿Le damos?
Sí. Perfecto.
Vale, pues bueno, pues despediros del amado público ya, si no queréis completar con algo, y ya seguiremos.
Bueno, muchas gracias por la compañía. Nos vemos en el siguiente.
Eso, gracias.
Nosotros todos. Los espíritus.
Nos vemos luego.
Muy bien. Nos vemos con todos los espíritus arrogantes que estamos por aquí intentando salvar.
Sí, iracundos.
Vale, pues dejo de grabar.